Hey everybody, thanks for tuning in for another episode of the Behind the Department video series for the 2024 Fire and Safety Calendar Shoot. Today we're in Evesham Township, New Jersey.
Correct.
With the Evesham Fire and Rescue Department. Chief Carl Bittenbender.
Yes.
Thanks for having us, Chief. I appreciate it.
Thanks for being here.
Absolutely. Deputy Chief Scott Freedman, thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Yeah, so it was great. Scott and I walked around the truck that we're featuring in this video series. And this is the Behind the Department video, which is kind of where we break down the department, the roles, responsibilities, the makeup of the department and so on, so that people get an understanding of, when we talk about the build and design of the apparatus, it needs to reflect the department that you are and the department you're scaling to be with growth. I know you're having, large growth here, the department's growing, all these different variables being thrown at you. So the apparatus certainly has to match the department that you are. So Chief, maybe I could start with you. Just a little background about the Evesham Fire Department.
Sure. Evesham Fire Rescue is a combination department. We have about 125 members, a combination of career firefighter EMTs, full-time EMTs, per diem EMTs, and volunteer firefighters and EMTs.
Okay. Combination department.
Combination department.
So that presents a whole slew of different things that you have to incorporate, especially when you're talking apparatus.
Yeah, and for a number of years we've been with the Pierce line. That's certainly helpful with consistency in some of the operations and features of the truck. So we're proud to be a Pierce customer. Our apparatus has the potential to move between three stations. Certainly our engines, they're in a fleet rotation.
Right.
So we have engine standardization. The Quint's a specialty piece. The heavy duty rescue is a specialty piece. But yeah, even when this apparatus came in, we trained both our volunteer and our career members, so that if it is on scene and it needs to be operated, the aerial needs to be used or the truck needs to be moved, any of our apparatus operators that have received that training can do so.
Sure. Chief Freedman, when we walked around the truck doing the Behind the Build video, a lot of different things we talked about, but the one thing was combining two into one, basically, right?
Yeah, so when we first set out on this, with this project, we were riding two similar true truck companies.
Right.
No water, no hose, a tank, and no pump. And that concept had served us well for many years, but with the minimum staffing and shortage of staffing in some levels, the volunteerism being down, our ability to staff all these pieces across the department was becoming a little bit more challenging, which made it harder for us to overcome some of those shortfalls and hurdles when we were out on the street and returning from a call.
Yeah.
Getting to the next call, making sure we had the appropriate equipment to address that need, mainly water and hose.
Yeah.
So we sold three trucks. We sold one aerial and two pumpers, and turned that into a Quint. By virtue of using some of the funding from the sale and additional funding through but the budgeting process, we were able to design and spec this particular truck out, which is definitely something that was a long time coming for us, and we're pleased with the way that it's turned out.
Yeah, I have to think. I mean, a lot of the conversation is as departments scale and grow, things change, right? Volunteers go down, volunteers come up, volunteers go down, volunteers come up. But the career staffing has to maintain a certain level of expectation of service, right? Because they are career. So you have that obligation here. And not only are you running fire and rescue services, but it's also EMS as well.
Correct. We run transport BLS with the ALS tiered system here in New Jersey, ALS fly car system. And then our department's one of the agencies. It's also part of a regional urban search and rescue team.
Right.
High angle, confined space, trench, structural collapse. And then obviously any other specialties. We do auto extrication as well in-house. New Jersey's a little weird. Some rescue squads do it, but as the name implies, Evesham Fire Rescue, we kind of are an all hazards agency.
Yeah, and so we saw that right on the build, and I think that's where I wanted to take this conversation is you guys are building towards the future, right? You had set engine companies, you had two dry truck companies, and then something, Chief Freedman, that really stood out to me was you said it wasn't so much going to the runs, right? If we were dispatched out of that station, we'd take the engine, and then the truck would come in second to or whatever, or vice versa, right? It's coming back from going from one district to the other, right? One area to another, and all of a sudden we get a call. Now we're in a dry truck, and the next due engine is several minutes behind us. And so, with that type of thinking and understanding of the type of district you are, creativity matters when it comes to making decisions and then changing the footprint, which can't always be an easy process.
Yeah, the township's 30 square miles,
Right.
3 stations, and kind of dissected in the middle with the residential and commercial areas in one part of town and a little more rural, wildland, urban interface setting in the other part of town. And this particular station serves as an engine in their first due, and the south part of town is the first due engine. But in the northern part of town, they were what we would consider, the truck company. They would traditionally run a 100-foot straight stick out of here and run to the more commercial
Right.
and residential area of town. But they were doing that on a dry straight stick. And what has changed over the years with the growth is also call concurrency, right? So the
Right.
number of simultaneous calls happen simultaneously. So they would end up, leaving the station with a dry truck, going uptown. Next thing you know, it's a multiple call scenario where that next call comes in, and now they're showing up with no water. So we wanted to, be able to have the aerial capability. Wanted to have, a decent complement of ground ladders. That I'll come back to that in a second.
Sure.
And certainly then the engine capabilities with some light rescue capabilities, a little bit of, spreader, cutter, combination tool. Reference the ground ladder complement, and we had this conversation off camera, the history of the fire service, something always has to give.
That's right.
So it's not a perfect truck company. It's in some respects, it's almost a better engine company than a truck company relative to the ground ladder complement. But that's one of the challenges that we face as a district is the number of high-density residential buildings that are being built. So in 2014, we had no 4-story residential multifamily housing,
Right.
no apartment complexes, condo complexes. Now we have 14 of them, and all of them probably average around 170, anywhere between 150 and 180 dwelling units per building, and we have 14 of them, and there's more on the drawing board. So this gives us, that capability to get there with an aerial, to get there with, 35-foot ground ladders on some of those elevated building heights, and effect rescues if we need to, or go into master stream operations. And if they end up being first due or they end up taking Division C, it gives them that water capability.
Right. Well, versatility, right?
Yep.
And what's really interesting is hearing that and then understanding through conversation earlier with the deputy chief, the growth here is happening like many places. I mean, you're seeing a lot of growth of those mid-rise multi-family residential units now. I think you said there's 14 new complexes,
Yeah.
right? And so on. And it should be said too, just to put it in perspective, you are in the shadow, we are in New Jersey, but we're in the shadow of the city of Philadelphia, Pennsylvania.
Yeah, so we're 12 miles outside of Center City, Philadelphia. Just about, I think, as the crow flies, if my memory serves me, 80 miles from New York City.
Right.
Just south of Trenton, which is the capital. So we have a big commuter base into the city of Philadelphia, into New York City. COVID certainly changed a lot of that. A lot of people were working from home. Our
Right.
daytime population used to swell because people would be coming here. We have a hospital in town, had some commercial office space. We have a couple large destination shopping centers. So the population would come in, and we would kind of swell during the day and go back to about 50,000 at night. And what we're finding is that we do swell during the day. A large portion of those 50,000 are still here during the day.
Right.
So our daytime call volume's elevated at night. We end up with those 52,000 folks. And they're either in a single family or high density residential.
Having to grow with the growth of the town is important. And I'm sure it keeps the two of you on your feet.
It does.
Absolutely.
So with the growth of the department and the apparatus that have to reflect that then, there's a lot packed into this small package behind us. And so what I think is really interesting is the fact that Pierce offered a 107 heavy-duty aerial on a single axle.
Correct.
Keeping it shorter than 40 feet in length, giving you the engine company capabilities that you need. It was a smart build. Did you have your eye on that? I know you were very happy with your heavy rescue that you guys had purchased, I think in 2019, Chief, I think you said. So I know that that was a great purchase for you guys. So did that take you back to Pierce?
Yeah, that is the primary reason. We went back to Pierce. The quality apparatus, the process, and the customer service is second to none. So Chief Freedman has led those a number of our builds.
Yeah.
From the engine, he was participated in the engine process under a previous chief who went through that kind of work group, process, and then led the heavy duty rescue process and then the Quint process. So we use a cross section of the membership. I typically don't sit on the committee as the chief. We work collaboratively at the command staff to identify kind of what those objectives are for the apparatus. And then Chief Freedman grabs a cross section of membership, volunteer firefighters, career firefighters, volunteer officers, career officers, himself, and really hammer down, right? Grab the sample specs from Pierce, highlight the features we want, kind of send that back to fire and safety. They compile that, they send it out to engineering, get answers on certain things, and then where the rubber meets the road is really that pre-con. We kind of get the base of it done, and then when they get into that pre-con meeting, out in Wisconsin, and can put it up on the whiteboard and sit across the table from engineering and ask all those questions. And I think Chief Freeman might have mentioned it in the walk around. Weight. The single axle, we were worried. We went from 2 engines and a ladder, and a lot of that equipment got carried over to this apparatus. So I wanted to make sure that we met the weight requirements for both axles. We do weigh our apparatus. This truck is close. It is not over. And make sure that we were in those parameters. And also understanding a little bit of, growth. So, at the time, we were not carrying any type of ballistic gear.
Right.
And associated EMS equipment for active violence incidents. So now we carry a full set of 4 sets of ballistic gear, which when you put in 4 sets of ballistic gear, it adds a couple hundred pounds, and that couple hundred pounds can make a difference. On being over. Our company officers and firefighters, they have a lot of pride in the apparatus, but we're also pretty careful about saying, hey, listen, we'd rather you didn't bring in like homemade tools and whatnot and kind of start adding it, because it makes a difference when we're out there and we're trying to get to a call, we're trying to stop, more importantly, and and whatnot. So
but needing to stop, right? I mean, these are things that are super important, right? Because a lot of times people, when they design apparatus, and I want to get back to the pre-construction because I believe in the pre-construction meeting so much in how important and instrumental that is in a build. But things like braking, we need to do our own homework and not just rely on the manufacturer to tell us, yep, that will work, or yep, that axle's good. We need to actually do the numbers, do the math, talk to people that are out there and do your own homework so that you have a third-party idea of what you need and want, right? And so I know that you guys ended up going with a Telma retarder for auxiliary braking on this truck.
Yeah, we did a lot of legwork. We travel locally to a number of departments who had recently taken delivery of this same single axle Ascendant aerial, and some of the common themes we were coming across were braking. So it was a concern to us. Obviously, maintaining these trucks comes at a cost. Brakes are very expensive, so we wanted to make sure that we were getting as much life out of the braking system as humanly possible, but also maintaining that safety aspect of making sure that the truck is able to react to whatever it is the chauffeur does, or the chauffeur needs it to do. So we went down the road of the Telma, which is the first Telma we ever put on a truck. And that was a little bit of a challenge for us, and I think there was a lot of back and forth with us and Pierce over the Telma, because the Telma adds about 500 pounds to the rear axle. So we had to, another thing we talked about when we did the walk around was concessions. That was a concession we made. We conceded 500 pounds because we felt stopping and braking and safety was extremely important. And having heard the message from other departments who have this truck, you know, we felt like that should be part of the priority in the build. You know, we also talked about purpose. You know, designing a truck with a purpose and identifying what the purpose of that truck is going to be before you lay out the plans on the table and start writing stuff down and, you know, taking ideas in. And that purpose was, you know, threefold. It was we needed to be able to work as an engine company. We wanted to be able to work as a truck company with a capacity of reaching 100-foot minimum from the aerial. We didn't want to lose ground ladders, which I feel like we did a very good job here, considering some of the challenges and obstacles we were up against. We have 155 feet of ground ladders on this truck. On a single axle Quint, that's pretty impressive. And we needed some rescue capabilities, meaning some vehicle extrication and stuff like that. So we were able to accomplish all of that while condensing the truck down by one complete axle. So we're pleased with it. We're pleased with it.
Yeah, well, I mean, so the behind the build video that we did and we walked around the truck, I mean, you look at all the different equipment that's being carried on this small footprint. There's a lot of equipment here. And so you mentioned weight, you mentioned braking. These were things that are of a priority when designing something like this, right? The committee you put together, I think, is very representative of why the truck is what it is, right? You need to be able to get input from your backstep firefighters, whether career or volunteer, from your company officers, up through the chain. How important is that to have a representative committee?
Really important, because it brings about diversity, you know, in so many different ways. You know, everybody has an aspect of this business that they love and they are passionate about. You know, you got people who are hose people or engine guys who are really good with, hey, we need to have this kind of hose, this diameter hose, this type of nozzle, this pressure, et cetera, et cetera. And then you got your truck people who know exactly what it is that we need to be carrying as the priority for a truck that we're trying to do multiple things with. The one aspect that's tough is having a technical person.
Yes.
We were fortunate to have a technical guy for 27 years. This was his last truck. He was a over-the-road mechanic who came to us after working as a mechanic. He was certified. He did all of our internal fleet maintenance for the first 3/4 of his career.
Yeah.
And then as we got bigger and busier, we began to farm that stuff out. But he was my right hand with these projects. He did every single truck since he started working here.
You bring up a very good point, because how often do we sit in a truck committee and a guy's like, I know all about braking, what do you need to know? And he knows nothing about it.
No.
But they think they do. They read an article, they saw a video, right? So technical people, super important to the build.
He was literally our go-to.
Yeah.
What size motor, what type of motor, what the rear needed to look like, what the ratios needed to be, weight, axle weight, you know.
It's important.
Anything and everything we needed to know technically about this truck that we needed somebody that wasn't from Pierce to answer, he was able to give us that perspective.
Yeah.
You know, it was just another way of saying, okay, you know, engineering's working here with us. You know, I'm over here and he's here between the two of us.
Yes.
You know, and he's giving it to me in a different language.
Yeah.
And to add to that, you know, there's cost savings involved in those decisions. So to say, hey, we're going to go with the medium block chassis on this apparatus, we don't need the large block because this is what our road miles look like. This is what our terrain looks like, you know, in terms of hills. We'll go with the medium block and we'll do this gear ratio, which will give it a little bit of giddy up, but it won't stress me out at night if it's one of my, you know, race car drivers operating. So yeah, his input was super valuable. So, you know, I'd recommend to anybody that's designing a truck, try and find that person in your community or in your region who can provide some of the guidance that we're not all super familiar with.
Yes. Yeah, I would agree wholeheartedly. The other thing, Chief, you mentioned that I find really interesting, and I love talking about it, is the pre-construction model for when building apparatus. I remember years ago, the process was you sat with your salesman, you signed the prints, they'd build the truck, and then you go out at final and you look at it and go, well, what about this? Or this didn't. How important is pre-construction?
Pre-construction is huge, especially obviously at the factory.
Yes.
Because you can go out to every stage of the production line, and if you're looking at a black and white piece of paper for what what something's called or what a feature is, and you're not sure what it is, or you're not sure if you want that feature, or you want to see what it looks like,
yes,
it's probably on the floor.
Yes.
It's either on the finished floor or it's somewhere in production. You can stand and you can talk to one of the fabricators on the floor and say, hey, what do you think about this? And some of the fabricators at Pierce, they're in the fire service. They volunteer in their off hours when they're not building trucks.
Right.
But some of them aren't. But what they do know is they know fabrication, and they know fire engines and fire apparatus, and they'll give you their honest feedback on, hey, this is what we think is a good feature. This is something that, hey, listen, I don't love this feature. It's on the build sheet. I don't think you really need it. It's not really practical. And everyone out there is very willing to share opinions, but that opinion is backed up with experience.
Yes.
So that pre-con is super important, from the engineering, from the fabricators, from seeing the apparatus from start to finish. You need to take a cross-section of your work group out to do that pre-con meeting, and that's probably who should go back on the final, and maybe a couple more guys on the final to make sure that specification, what you ordered is what was built and what is delivered.
That's it.
And it doesn't matter what manufacturer you go with. You're going to get the final inspection, and you're going to need to make maybe a few minor adjustments when you get out there. So make sure that whatever manufacturer you use, you hold them to that. You don't accept delivery of that truck without making sure everything meets what you've specified. Pierce has been not only do they build a quality product, but they've been really good about making sure that we get what we specified.
Yes.
On this particular truck, we did final inspection, and there was things that even after final inspection and getting out there and seeing it, we didn't love. So we're like, hey, listen, we need to put a change order in for a couple of these minor things. Some of the things, the tip, with some lighting, some of the protections on some of the control boxes at the tip, we wanted a little more protection around them once we saw. Listen, you can put in a spec, hey, we want XYZ at the tip, but until the fabricator puts it on there,
That's right.
We didn't want a tree branch ripping it off. So we said, hey, listen, can you turn it this way so the wires, are more protected, and can we shroud it? And some of those change orders, flashing tip lights, right? So you know where the tip is, can be super distracting and blinding in certain conditions, fog or smoke. So a flashing strobe cutoff switch is on the pedestal. So, if we're in a really low light environment and that amber is just super distracting, we can just cut it off and not have an issue. So, doing pre-con, and then engineering is really good about during the build process if giving you a call, hey, we're not sure if this happened, to making sure you're getting your pictures, looking at all your pictures. Don't just scroll on by. Look at the picture, zoom in on the picture. Yep. That's all important. All of our citizens are paying a lot of money for a piece of apparatus.
That's it.
So you need to be all in.
Yeah. Chief, working with Fire and Safety, they're your dealer here for Pierce in the state of New Jersey. That's why we're here today, sitting around the table, talking about your build that's being featured on their calendar this year. I've become good friends, gotten to know them down there through working on many different projects. Just a little background, with working with them as a dealer and so on.
So we've been very pleased with that relationship.
Yeah.
Obviously, we left another manufacturer in 2009, 2010 to go to Pierce. And that was our first endeavor into the Pierce line. And Fire and Safety does a very good job of representing the Pierce product in the state of New Jersey. Very responsive from a service perspective.
Sure.
They are, I mean, most of the time we get same-day service.
Yeah.
For breakdowns and stuff like that when we have those types of events. So very much been happy with that, with what they offer to us in the state of New Jersey. Our sales team is great. We have had the same salesman since we bought the 2010 Arrows, and that relationship is extremely important to us, that we have that dialogue and constant dialogue. I talk to my salesperson probably weekly, even when we don't have a truck in the pipeline. And that's important. It's important. It shows that he stands behind his product, that he cares about us, and that relationship, and building that relationship is extremely important to the
Yes.
build process, not only for the trucks, but also for the service and all the other aspects of what fire and safety has to offer. So we've been very happy with fire and safety. I know I could pick up the phone and call just about anybody up there. They know who we are, from the sales managers to the assistant managers, to the president and the vice president.
Sure.
So we have a very good relationship with them.
Relationships matter.
They do.
You can lean on them when you need to, and also when you have a relationship like that, it helps in the build process because they get to understand you, the department, and the town that you're protecting. So it goes a very long way. Chiefs, last thoughts, final words before we start the wrap?
Anyone watching can feel free to reach out.
Great.
I'll pass you on to Chief Freedman. But seriously, our truck's always available to come see. If you're local in New Jersey, or if you need to come down and take it for a spin, please do so. We have been most successful in our apparatus designs by the willingness and the friendship from other fire departments to let us do the same thing. So we're happy to extend that in return.
Well, that's great. I mean, and that's a big part of it. Get out and see what's out there, right? Because a lot of it is available to you. You just have to do the work to go find it.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely, and I echo that. I mean, that's we had there was 2 or 3 departments, 2 local and 1 in Pennsylvania, that were very accommodating to us. Even to the point where the Pennsylvania company brought the truck to us,
wow.
which we appreciate.
Yeah.
And it really helped our people in our work group to visualize what we were looking to do, rather than looking at it in a 1 or 2 dimensional drawing on a hanging on a bulletin board. So it was really important to us that they were accommodating to us and willing to go the extra mile to help us out. And we were more than eager to do the same thing. I take phone calls all the time about all the trucks that we have here, and anybody can come anytime and take a look, and I'll be more than happy to even help them.
Awesome.
So.
Well, Chiefs, thank you very much for having us today. It was a lot of fun to see what you have here with the Quint. Beautiful build. It's going to serve you guys for many years to come. Deputy Chief Scott Freedman, thank you. Chief, I appreciate you. Chief of Department, Carl Bittenbender, thank you, Chief. I appreciate it. And thank you for extending this courtesy to us, and congratulations. Thank you.
Thank you.
Everyone, thanks for tuning in. This was the Behind the Department Build Series on the Fire and Safety 2024 calendar project. Thanks for tuning in. We'll see you at the next one. Jeremy, National Fire Radio.